Hey everyone, it's Dr. Jason West in the West Clinic program, Thursdays at 5 o'clock. I'm so excited. Angela's here and she's saying, oh, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I'm like, don't worry. We're totally going to do this as we go. And we're just really excited to hear what happens inside someone's life. And so I had a plan to have someone on Skype, and we just ended up having some conflict problems, and I told the universe this morning, all right, someone is going to, I need to recruit someone to the office. And who was on the schedule first? And I hadn't seen her for months, and I was like, look, would you mind telling your story? She's like, I'll totally tell my story. I said, it'll be good for everybody to hear, and it's going to be therapeutic for you, because sometimes when you've been sick for a long time and then you get better, you kind of forget a little bit about the journey. And so anyway, it's just this wonderful story. It's the Thursday night 5 p.m. program. And just as a reminder, we do this every week. Thursdays, we have people in the office, real stories of hope, survival, what people are doing to get their health back. And like I always say, it's all about beating your disease. You're not your diagnosis. So just as a reminder of what we're doing, Wednesday nights, we have a topic on education. And then Thursday nights, it's where the rubber hits the road. So without further ado, I promised that I would be easy on Angela. I'm going to walk her through her story and everything, and how she ended up in the booming megatropolis of Idaho from back east. So with that being said, Angela, I don't want you to say anything that makes you, uncomfortable, but before you came to the office, you hadn't been feeling very well for a while. So kind of go back and when did you get sick, and then how did that process start?
Okay, so I got sick in 2002. I was out in my backyard in North Carolina, and I got bit by a tick. And I got sick pretty much right away, and it was a classic Lyme disease. So I got the bullseye rash, and I went to the doctor and got a Western blot, and they said, you're positive for Lyme. And I said, okay, so how are we going to handle this? And they gave me 2 weeks of antibiotics, 2 weeks of penicillin.
Okay, so that's 19 years ago. I went to Utah State, 2021 minus 2002, 19 years ago. You get bit by a microorganism or a vector, a tick. You get the classic bullseye rash. You go to the doctor's like, you got Lyme disease.
Yeah.
Here, let's give you 2 weeks. It was doxycycline they gave you?
I believe it was penicillin.
Okay, so penicillin, which I'm head scratching here a little bit because I hear doxycycline, I hear Rocephin a lot. Penicillin, I'm not sure that's going to work against Lyme, but it doesn't matter what I think. 2002, you get the treatment, and then how do you feel?
I never feel good again. I always get worse, continually worse. So I go back to the doctor probably about a month later, and I said, I'm not feeling better, I'm feeling worse. And they're like, well, you should feel better. You'll be okay.
So, okay. And then in 2002, what are you feeling? What are your symptoms?
So I'm tired right away. I was in college. I had to drop out of college because I just couldn't keep up with the work. I was tired. I had a part-time job. I quit my part-time job because all I could do was sleep. And then the joint pain and the muscle cramps started coming, and the brain fog, really, really bad brain fog.
So you can't think,
right.
You can't move, you can't work, you can't go to school. And so you're telling your doctor, I don't feel very well, and the doctor says to you, well, you should do this. And what is that?
Nothing.
So he says, don't do nothing, you'll get better?
The doctor never says, I believe you still have Lyme disease. They never take my blood again. They start treating me for depression.
Okay, so what they're saying is this is not our fault.
Right.
This is your fault.
In your head.
Right. So here's a happy pill.
Right.
So do you take the antidepressant?
I do, because they're doctors.
Right. So they tell you, okay, do this, you do it.
Right.
And then kind of what happens over the next little bit? You're taking your happy pill. Does it help?
No, not at all. I don't tell any difference, and I get worse and worse. And so I say, well, I have to get outside of this specific hospital system. So I start looking anywhere in North Carolina. And really, I look from 2002 to 2019 for anybody in North Carolina, South Carolina, on the East Coast, anywhere that could help me. And nobody could help me.
Okay, so do you see different specialists in that process? You get outside the hospital system, and then a lot of times what happens with other patients is their GP will say, here see a rheumatologist, here see a psychiatrist, here see an internal medicine. Does that happen?
So there was some of that, but there was really a lot we don't have Lyme disease in North Carolina. There's no way you got Lyme disease. something's wrong with your story. It probably was never Lyme disease.
Now wait a minute. But you went to the doctor.
Yes.
He did a Western blot test.
Right.
It comes back, and here it is, Lyme disease.
Right, and not only that, like I had the classic bullseye rash, so it's written on my chart how my rash looked.
Okay, like I'm scratching my head again, like I'm trying to figure this out. Like you got bit by a tick, you get the rash, you have a positive Western blot. Like that's like the classic way to diagnose people, but they're saying it doesn't exist. They must have amazing border control in North Carolina.
They told me, yes.
No ticks in North Carolina.
That carry Lyme disease.
Yeah, carry Lyme disease.
Right.
Okay, so you're outside the system,
Right.
and you have over a decade where you're going and you're trying to find, like, I need some help. Like, I'm searching for something, you're not finding it, but give me some example. Besides a happy pill, did they give you any other options for treatment?
So I do think I got on Doxy. I got on
Doxycycline.
I don't recall that really helping me. I think maybe I was able to do a month, I think, for that doctor. And then after that didn't help, the doctor was like, I don't really know what to do with you. I went to an arthritis doctor. They're like, I don't think it's rheumatoid arthritis. I'm not really sure what's going on with you.
And show everybody your hands. Like, put your hands up. Okay, see, look, nice, normal hands, no RA, no joint disfigurement.
Right. And I look fine.
You look great.
Thanks.
Okay.
So I hear that a lot. Well, you're looking great, you're doing great, you're able to hold down a part-time job, you are able to go to a little bit of school,
So what kind of job are you able to hold down? You get the diagnosis, the antibiotics, the happy pill, then another course of doxycycline, then everybody's saying, look, it's not us, it's you.
Right.
You look great, or you look fine, so go to work.
Right. So I do. I go to work.
Okay, and you suck it up. You're living on willpower.
Right.
And then what happens?
It just gets to the point in 2019, I don't even know how I got there, but I remember waking up one day and thinking, like, you know what, like, Lyme is going to kill me. It's going to be slow and painful, but it's going to win.
So, and in the meantime, it's joint pain, it's fatigue, it's brain fog. Is anything else showing up? Any other symptoms 10 years after your diagnosis? So sometimes people are complaining about stomach pain or insomnia, or the hormones get really upset.
I couldn't sleep. My hormones were all a mess. My pins and needles all over my body, not even in my feet. There'd be days I couldn't get out of bed because of pain, and then days I couldn't get out of bed because of fatigue. So it was a tough road. I would say, like, any symptom of Lyme, I've had it.
Okay.
At one point.
And so I'm going to take the doctors out of the equation. Like your inner circle, like your friends and your family, like what are they observing for you in this disease process? Like what is their feedback?
So my family is here on the West Coast. I was in North Carolina, and all of a sudden, like, I wasn't making trips to see them. And they got there was like a red flag, like, what's going on with you? You're not well enough to come here? So they did start coming and seeing me, and they're like, you're really sick. And I remember I said once to my older sister, like, oh, I have so much pain, but that's just part of life, isn't it? And she was like, no.
Yeah, for sure. I would say the same thing. Like, pain is not normal.
I was like, you don't have pain every day? And she's like, no. She's like, you have pain every day? I was like, every single day, every minute.
Right. So maybe pain after, later on in, 80s, 90s and stuff, pain like shows up because we're designed a little bit to wear out. But this is like prime of your life. This is like late 20s, early 30s, right?
Right.
So your sister's saying, hey, you're really sick. Your family's alarmed because you're not coming out to see them. And did they give you any recommendations, suggestions? Like, how are they trying to help you?
Well, they find it unbelievable that, like, a doctor won't listen to me. They've never had that experience, And
I have to ask the question, being, 15, 17, 20 years into this, why do you think doctors aren't listening? Because I hear that a lot from people, especially with common, complex chronic health problems. They're like, no one listens to me. And my dad was like, listen, Jason, when people come in the office, like, you've got to listen. So, like, it's so foreign to me. But why do you think they don't listen?
Well, I do think that there's a difference in the perception of Lyme disease on the East Coast compared to the West Coast. And I don't know what happened on the East Coast, but it seems like when there was a big outbreak in Connecticut and New England, something really shifted there that people thought, like, you get Lyme disease, you take your medicine, and you're fine.
Well, that's how I learned when I was in school. And again, I've told this story lots of times. I went through 4 years of undergrad, a doctoral program, a second part of a doctoral program. In that 10-year stretch, this is what they told me about Lyme disease. It's a vector-borne illness by a tick, bullseye rash, migrating polyarthritis, so arthritis everywhere, 2 weeks of antibiotics, everybody's healed, next disease.
Right.
Like that's what was drilled into me for a decade, and it wasn't until I did some post-grad work when a doctor was saying, hey, this is a huge problem that's undiagnosed and mistreated and mislabeled, and it's a huge problem. Like, you've got to be aware of this. Like, that's what woke me up. But this is 20 years into my education.
Right, wow.
So anyway, everybody knows what, like, your family knows you're not doing well. The doctors, like, they're kind of throwing up their hands. They're basically giving up on you, saying it's in your head, here, take a happy pill.
Right.
And then how do we line up? Like, how did you find the booming megatropolis of Pocatello?
So I just said to myself, 2019 was kind of my breaking point. Like, I'm either going to stay here and this is going to get the best of me, or let's do like one last crazy thing. And you weren't the last crazy thing, but I found a clinic in Seattle where they do antibiotic IVs.
Okay, so that's one of the things, the forks in the road, chronic disease, and I find people either do like hardcore antibiotics or they do what we do, which is hardcore vitamin C and stuff like that. So you're heading out to Seattle, and what happens?
Right. My sister lives in Idaho, so I was like, well, I'll stop in and see my sister. And when I got to my sister's, I got really sick. And I was like, I'm not going to make it to Seattle.
So when you say really sick, like a flare-up?
Yes, a
Okay,
bad flare-up.
and then tell me what do you feel inside of a flare-up?
So there's so much pain, it almost makes you mad because it feels like your body's just being attacked. And there's not 1 second where you're not in pain. There's not 1 second when your head's not pounding, where your legs aren't cramping. I would throw up. I was in so much pain.
And this is not the first time it's happened. Like, you've had
No.
flare-ups before.
Yes.
So what kind of, so I'm going to say, like, if health's here,
Right.
and then you're kind of functioning here, and the flare-up, like, you're down here, like, besides time, is there anything that helps you get out of that flare-up, or is it just wait?
I waited out.
Okay, so you waited out, you're in Idaho, you're with your sister, you're not feeling right, you're on your way to Seattle, and the universe or God or Providence or like, well, we're gonna get your attention in Idaho.
Yeah.
So you're in Idaho in a flare-up, then what happens?
So I was like, I just need a doctor who's seen at least one person with Lyme before. Like, there has to be a doctor in Idaho that has seen one Lyme patient. So I type into Google, I think it was like Lyme doctor near me. And boom, West Clinic. And I was like, I asked my sister, where is Pocatello? She's like, it's 45 minutes up the road. I was like, what?
So you find us in Google,
Yes.
you see a little bit about it, you bring in, and then tell everybody kind of what was your experience in the office the first visit?
Well, I came in very skeptical. I had done, I was on all the Lyme disease boards. I found a few people that had kind of experienced it, but there wasn't a lot of people that had been here. But I was on the East Coast, you have to remember, so those are my contacts. So I was really skeptical, and I was reading about these treatments. I was like, even for me, this seems a little far out.
Yeah, far out.
So I went in, but I was telling my sister, like, I want to see what they have to say, but I don't have my hopes up. No doctor's ever helped me. They seem like really sure of themselves, and I don't know how that can be. So I go in, and immediately, like, from the person that checked me in to, like, people were listening. And I was like, you're listening to me? And you believe I have this pain?
So, Angela, it's not surprising at all for people to be cautious or skeptical or sometimes even belligerent. And the reason why they do that, and I've said this in our programs before, is it's a protection for you. And here's what it means, is after 19 years of being sick, you're in the side of the system and you're scared to believe that you can get better. So what happens is patients put up barriers because they don't want to be let down.
Right.
So it's not that it's like, it's just a way you protect yourself. So we're inside the clinic, you meet with our patient care coordinator, so it's either Jody or Macy's kind of putting it together, and then we start having our interaction, and then, like, what happens? And were you by yourself, or did you have Eric with you?
I was actually by myself.
Okay, so you're by yourself, and then we meet for the first time, and then walk people through, like, what you and I experienced together.
So I don't remember a lot of it because I just felt like there's no way I'll be able to tell them how sick I am, because a lot of people just look at you and like, oh, you're walking around, you're up in the world, you're fine. And I was like, I really don't know how to get across how sick I am. And once I started telling you, you were like, yeah, that makes sense because, X, Y, and Z, And I was like, he's listening to me, he believes me, and he's seen this before. So I was really shocked. And then I still hadn't made up my mind. And you looked me in the eyes and you said, like, you can get better. Like, we can make you better. And I was like.
So did that make you feel like, uh-oh, like either he knows what he's doing or it's a complete con job?
No, because you looked me straight in the eye and you were like really sincere. And at that point I was like crying.
So, and then we put your blood up on the screen.
Yes.
Like that was a big step. So tell everybody, like, what did that do for you? What was your aha moment, your experience with seeing what's in your blood?
So I was actually really nervous because I was told it was in my head for so long. I was like, what if this is the point? Like, the universe proves it really was in my head. And then what am I doing? Like, what have I done the last 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
And you put it up on the screen and you're like, oh yeah, look, there's line markers and there's pain markers. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's relief, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so many people have told me that is thank you for, the validity of, because when the medical community doesn't, diagnose or give you treatment options, and then the response is here's a happy pill, or then people start thinking, well, maybe I'm a hypochondriac, maybe I'm crazy, maybe maybe, and that's one of the reasons why I love looking at the blood tests and where we correlate it with the blood, because we could see it in there. Like I could see the markers, and I could there's the reason why you're sick. It's right there. That's why you're sick.
And it was, I'm a librarian. I think I told you that. So like you went to your bookshelf and you took down a book and you're like, look, this is what your blood looks like, and this is what it is. It says in this book, and I was like, oh my God.
So all of that training for my dad, which he was like hammer, like here's your library, here's your library, here's your library.
Off, yeah.
And I forgot that you were a librarian. Like I totally spaced that part.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so then you're like, okay, we go through the thing, you're cautious, you're trying to figure out like why in the world did I have to come to Idaho to find someone that, and then we propose some treatments. Like what was your response to, like you said, the out there treatments? By the way, everyone, it's vitamin C, like it's the greatest vitamin, it's oxidative medicine, and it's nerve reprogramming. So to me that seems like so mainstream. It's not mainstream at all. But I feel, because we're doing it every day, I'm like, yeah, of course, it's totally logical. Like this is what we do. So I propose this to you and you're processing, and then what happens?
So I'm processing and I'm still not sold because I don't know anybody that has done this. Like I may have known, I did know a few people that have done just a vitamin C drip, and they, there's no cure in a vitamin C drip. They might have felt better for a little while. I was like, I'm going to have to go home, be a librarian, and research this. Like, go to my sister's, because I think Jody was like, okay, you want to go take your IV? And I was like, no.
Well, part of it too is one of the reasons why we offer that is because most of our patients come from so far away. And my team has told this to me numerous times, Dr. J, you got to be careful that you just don't do everything for them on the first visit, because I'm like, oh, North Carolina? Well, like, let me roll up my sleeves. Oh, from Texas? Okay, let's do it. So you have the visit and you're like, I'm gonna go home, and you're very studious by nature. You go to your sisters and you start saying, what do you find?
Right, so I think that you said like the HCT shot, did I say that right?
Yeah, so that stands for healthy cell therapy.
And then you told me about the IVs.
Right, the IV vitamin C, and with all those crazy drugs in it, like magnesium and B complex and potassium, like the really, and I'm, of course, everyone, I'm joking, because a lot of times people say, there has to be more inside the IVs than what you're telling me. And I'm like, really, it's vitamin C and minerals and other vitamins.
And then the neurotherapy.
Okay, so the neurotherapy, it doesn't matter if you have Lyme disease or arthritis or stomach problems, or like, I'm just trying to reset the system. So I tell you about this nerve reset that you've never heard before, and what goes through your head?
Like, like it was a nice experience. They're all really nice there, but I don't know. So I go home and me and my sister, we start Googling. I call Eric in North Carolina, Eric, my fiance in North Carolina, and he's even more skeptical. He was like, but you know what? Like at this point, like what do you have to lose?
Good job, Eric. way to reinforce all the science by saying, yeah.
What do you have to lose? You've come this far, right? You found this clinic in the middle of, I don't want to say it's nowhere, because it's not the middle of nowhere.
It's kind of in the sticks, everyone.
Right.
Matter of fact, I had a patient today say, and he's from Pennsylvania, like, why in the world did you decide here? I'm like, well, it's my family's home, and I like it here.
Yeah. So in my head, I'm like, do they even have Lyme patients? But there's Lyme all over, you know what I mean?
Right.
And on your website, you're like, yeah, we treat Lyme. I was like, okay.
So did you see some of the other testimonials?
So I did. I saw some of the testimonials, but then I'm like, they're on your website, they're on your Facebook. So I was like, let me dig in more to the Lyme boards off the testimonials. And I found 2 great blogs. I can't even remember them now. I feel so awful. So if you're out there and I've contacted you and I said, I love your blog, you know who you are, but I'm sorry, I can't remember your name right now.
Okay.
And I just remember some girl, she just wrote about the massive amount of pain she has, and she said she did the neural therapy, and she basically has no pain. And I was like, well, if that one thing works for me, I'm doing it.
So everyone, what neural therapy is it's a German technique where we're trying to reprogram nerves. And what that means is so many times, like in Angela's case or other people's case, they get a nerve memory inside of their system, and then the nervous system thinks that's normal. For example, I take care of rodeo and rancher guys, and every once in a while one will come in and they'll be out practicing roping, and they get a rope caught around their finger, and the cow takes off and it pulls their finger off, and they'll say to me, Dr. West, my finger's killing me, even though it's not attached to the body. And it's what's happening is the nerve is telling the brain, I hurt, I hurt, I hurt. It's the cycle, and it never gets interrupted. And even though Angela hasn't had an amputation, she's not a rancher roper, what happens is when you're sick for that long, like your nervous system, like your mind wants you to live here. And what occurs is over time of pain and insomnia and stomach problems, everything, like you kind of are existing down here. And then the nervous system tells you, like, that's what it's like to be normal. So that's the conflict that she has. She remembers in 2000 what it's like to be healthy. But for 15 years, it's like, I don't feel very good, I have flare-ups. And so the neural therapy, we take a B vitamin and a little tiny dental syringe, and we work on the skin and the nerves that control organ systems to make them open, close, and reset. And by the way, Angela, you're not the only one. When Shelby, our medical practitioner, our medical director, started working with me, like I took her into this room and I told her, I want you to watch what happens to this patient's chronic pain pattern. And she's like, what? And I'm like, watch what we do this. And her face, like it was a poker face of like, you are such an idiot. Like there is no way that was working. And we worked on the patient, and then it was a shoulder problem, and he was literally on the thing of, I can't believe it, like I think it's starting to feel better. Maybe it's in my head, I'm starting to feel better, I'm starting to feel better. And now, like Shelby will do like she is like that first thing, oh, we're doing neural therapy. And I'm like, I haven't even told you like what's wrong yet. And she's like, get out of my way, I'm gonna go fix this patient right here. So we tell you the neural therapy, you find it on a blog or a reference to someone, and you're still processing,
right.
And your fiance, his ringing endorsement is, well, what the heck? What else have you tried, right? What do you have to lose?
Right.
But at this stage, you're still researching it. So pick up the story from there.
So what I found overall, though, is people that had came and saw you or had similar treatments were feeling better, whereas the people who went to clinics like I was going to go to in Seattle with the antibiotic therapy, they weren't feeling better for very much longer.
Well, they kind of seem to plateau them. That's what my feeling.
Yes.
Like they don't necessarily work, but then like the other thing that, and I'm biased on this, so I'm not attacking any long-term IV antibiotic or anything like that. But my experience is they plateau, and then over time the body like it starts to react to the antibiotic, and then that's just my observation. But hey, whatever works. Like I'm not attacking anything.
No.
I just want people to get better. That's kind of my observation. You see that in the clinic system, and I interrupted you. Pick up your story from your researching in your sister's place.
Right. So I just decide I'm gonna go. I mean, what's the harm in going once? If they're totally crazy, I'll probably find out. You know. So I said I'm gonna go once, and I just remember the first time I walked in, kind of. It feels like a cocoon. It feels like you guys cocoon your patients. Like I come in and I'm all taken care of, and everybody knows my name, and I'm all set up, I'm ready to go. And any questions I have, this is the other amazing thing. Any question I ask anybody on your staff, they could answer. And that's not true of other clinics I went to. They didn't know what I was talking about, had never heard of that symptom before. And I just thought like, oh, like it really opened my eyes. Like everybody in this place knows what they're doing.
Well, and you guys, this is kind of by accident, so I'm going to tell Angela, but I'm going to hope that she closes her ears. Like, you guys, that was out of desperation, and not for Angela. But in 2011, my dad passed away, and I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to do things without him? Like, he was such a huge person in my life. He knew how to treat everything. He was the greatest doctor, healer of all, and I'm totally biased, of all time. But back then we decided, like, we're going to have a team meeting every morning, and we're going to review who's coming in, and then I'm going to tell the team, this is what I'm experiencing, and this is what's important. So the reason why everybody know about you, because we have the sheet in the morning, and I'm like, oh, by the way, hey, Angela's coming in, and she has, Lyme disease. This is what has happened to her. She had the work, and so we do that with every patient. So that's why you have that cocoon feeling. And I thought, if I don't do that, if I do that, maybe I have a shot of keeping everything together. And so it's nice to hear on the the patient experience side that this thing that's so important to the office, every morning at 8 to 8:30 we meet and we go over the schedule. So you come in, you're like, I'm going to give them one shot.
Right.
I've been sick for a long time, but they have one treatment,
they got
right?
one to make me all better.
Right.
Forever.
Okay, so you're like, wow, they answer my questions, and what happens that day? I mean, I know that's 2 years ago, but what happens?
So I can't even remember everything I did, but I know I had the neurotherapy first, which is crazy because it was like, I'm afraid of needles. And they're like, we're going to like poke this little needle into you like 50 times. And I was like, what?
Okay, now just so everyone knows, she is accurate that it's a lot, but it is a super small needle. It's just into the skin. It's very superficial, and we try to go fast. But when the nerves come out of the spinal cord and then they go through the organs, the tissues, the muscles to the skin, if you just work on the skin, it starts to reset everything coming back. So I have to tell people, look, this is uncomfortable. It's going to feel like bee stings. We're going to go as fast as possible, but it gives us the chance to reset. So you experience that, and then what do you think?
And it wasn't even bee stings. Like, I could barely feel it. And Shelby did it, and she was so great. And like, she lowered the lights. Everybody was so quiet around me. I didn't even feel like I felt like I was at a spa, right? And so she did that, and I didn't feel like any different. And I was like, okay, well,
they're crazy,
right? Right? It's crazy, but it didn't hurt me. And so I think I might have done some other little things, but then it ended up in the IV room, and Eric was actually there with me. Okay,
so your fiance he makes the crusade from North Carolina to Idaho, and we kind of were joking about culture shock. We'll get into that a little bit later, but he's with you, and you get into the IV room, and what do you experience in there?
Well, I don't know if it is kind of like this all the time, but that day, the other patients in there were so wonderful. They were like, oh, hi, this is your first time. You're gonna love it here. This you might be super tired afterwards, but you're gonna feel great. Everybody in the IV room, I was like, all 12 of you have felt better after this? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, so again, I'm scared of needles.
Right.
But I think Tazi or Misty or somebody put it in and like it didn't hurt. And all you gotta do is sit there. It doesn't hurt. You watch the little bag drip down. And I just thought, like, I could do this 9 more times, because I think you told me, like, let's do this 10 times. I was like,
right, that's a kind of a standard thing. Let's set up 10, which, by the way, in my head, and you haven't, maybe you know this, but for everybody out there, like, my goal for almost every patient is 1 million milligrams of vitamin C. Like, that's my goal. So it's 100,000 milligrams, which, by the way, the RDA level is 400 to 500. Now I'm going to give you 100,000 per treatment, but I love to get people to that threshold. So that was in my head. I should have told you. I want to give you 1 million milligrams of vitamin C, and let's see what happens. Which is so funny, because I've had other doctors, like, they'll tell me, hey, I just had this happen about 3 months ago. A patient came out from Louisiana. We took care of them. They had a really nice response. They go back to your doctor, and the doctor calls me and says, hey, thank you so much for getting the patient improved. How can I help? And I tell him, give him a ton of vitamin C. And he's like, how much? And I said, you need to give him 100,000 milligrams. And he literally said, that'll kill the patient, and hung up on me. Oh my gosh. Like, I didn't even finish. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, you just said that they were better. Anyway, so we're on track to give 1 million milligrams. Then what happens?
Okay. I got my first treatment. Everything was fine. I went home. I think I was really tired. I probably slept, but I'm always really tired, so I didn't blame that on you.
Okay.
I kind of talk about it with my sister and Ariel, that's my sister Ariel, and Eric and my dad, and I was like, I don't know. Everybody there just seems so confident that I'll get better. Like even the patients, I was like, so I'm just going to do this 10. And then if I need to go to Seattle, I'll go to Seattle.
Right. So we're not sold yet, but
They're
you're
not
like,
sold yet. They're not hurting me.
they're not hurting you.
Right.
Okay. So then what happens?
So the next day I wake up and one of the biggest issues I had is I just had like this constant pain like from my ear to my jawline. And I wake up and it's not like screaming bad. It's like muted the next day. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, this has been like constant for me for like at least 10 years, and every day it gets worse. And I was like, this doesn't hurt so bad. I was like, I don't have to get up and do all this stuff just to make sure I can get through the day on this side of my face. And I was like, yeah, I'm going back. Like, when can we go back?
Okay, so we get you back in the
Yes.
office, and in second treatment, third treatment, like the next treatments, walk everybody through what kind of you experience, what happens.
Yeah, so you go in and you just fall into this routine because like, you know, everybody knows you, they know what to walk you through to set you up, you get to know everybody by name, they're great, you know, they ask you about your family, your kids, and I find myself like by the third and fourth treatment, like I'm feeling better. And I haven't felt better since 2002. And I'm almost scared to tell like my fiance and my sister because then I don't want to rip it away from them.
Right.
But like by the fifth treatment, the pain in my face was gone. And I was like, I have to tell you something, like really whisper it to like my sister and my fiance. I was like, I don't have pain in my face anymore. And they were like, what? I was like, yeah, I don't. And they were like, that in itself is a miracle. I was like, it is. And then I think by like the ninth treatment, I didn't have to take a nap. And I just felt like queen of the world. I was like, look at me, staying awake all day. I was like, boom, you know? I really thought I was something. And it was such a miracle, I didn't even know how to tell people about it. I didn't know how to like quantify. I still don't know how to say like, I was feeling so bad, you just don't understand. And now I'm feeling so good, you just don't understand.
So the 10th treatment rolls around, which for us is a big deal. For patients and in the office, like it's a reevaluation treatment. And that's when we kind of review the patient history, we go over everything again, and then we look at your blood, and what do you see on your blood?
So it was better, but you were like, you're going back to North Carolina, and I'm a little bit worried about you backsliding. I was like, I'm a lot worried about me backsliding because there isn't nobody in North Carolina that's going to do this for me.
Which is so shocking to me. Like, there is, but they're kind of hiding under the radar. And
yeah.
like I said, I've told so many doctors, look, take your grandma panties off and give them vitamin C, like for real, like really get out. And so many guys are like, you can't. And I've even asked the doctors, had you have any experience with vitamin C? And they're like, no, but you can't give 100,000 milligrams. And I'm like, look, you've seen the patient get better. I've told you what I'm doing. And they're still like, oh, it'll give them kidney stones. Whatever. Anyway.
We'll take the kidney stones.
So we finish up the treatment, and I don't remember, did you go back or did you stay?
Well, I went back,
Okay.
but I went back to like move my stuff from North Carolina to Idaho because I'd been talking with my family and my fiance. I'm like, I'm not going back to North Carolina to feel like that like ever again. And I don't know where I'm going to end up, but for right now, I'm going to be in driving distance of the West Clinic. And my sister is so gracious. She's like, yeah, you can come live with us. I was like, done.
So she lives in Idaho Falls?
She does.
Okay, so Idaho Falls.
And she's the best sister ever.
How cool is that? So, and so you go back, you pick up your stuff up. When you're picking your stuff up, like, do you feel good? Do you feel like you're sliding back? Like, what's happening in the time period from the 10th treatment to your move?
Yeah, so I do feel, because it took me about probably 2 months flying and packing up and kind of going back and forth, I do start to backslide. And I'm getting like panicked. Like, oh my God, this was just temporary. And I'm getting like super panicked. But I never go totally back into the pain I had. And every day I realize like, I was able to pack up like my whole bedroom. I would have never been able to do that before. I was able to like, I don't know, go on a walk. I was never able to do that. I was able to make dinner without like yawning through the process. And I was like, and this is my backslide. And I still feel okay. Like I feel better than I have since 2002. So.
And then your fiance's observation when you come back is what?
Well, he was here for a lot of the first part of the treatment, which I was still really tired. So when I go back and he sees me, like he just sees it on me immediately. Like, oh, wow, like you look better. I'm like, I feel better. And like we went out to dinner, you know, and I didn't have to be like, oh, I gotta go, I'm so tired. And we were able to watch a movie together without me falling asleep. He was pretty like, you're better.
Yeah, by the way, guys, this is all BC before Corona.
Right.
Like, that's my
True.
joke. Okay, so
True.
it's all BC. So then you decide, okay, I'm coming back. You're living with the world's greatest sister in Idaho Falls.
Right, she's great.
And then what happens?
So I do come back. I do come back, and I don't know how many treatments I do, but then COVID hits.
Yeah, I think we did. You guys, I think I'm pretty close. I think over the next couple months we did another 10.
Yeah,
like, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I've done 2 full 10s.
2 full 10s.
Yeah, and I think maybe change, but I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah.
So we're going along, and then the little virus from China shows up.
Right.
And then how does that affect you?
I was first really scared because I was like, I can't imagine having to be sick again. Like nothing is going to make me sick again. So I do kind of close in on myself, and I even like tell the West Clinic, like, I'll be back like in a month or 2. I'm feeling really good, so don't worry. And everybody's like, yeah, okay, we'll see you in a month or 2.
Which, by the way, is our expectations, like just what you're experiencing. Like 1, you can beat this, and 2, like we can make you normal. Like I totally believe that. And then it's all about supporting your system, and so many times people are like they taste health. And then they're like, it puts them into, oh my gosh, I got to stay, like I can't lose that.
You don't want to go back.
You don't want to lose that.
Right.
And so, and then we connect how much longer after that? Because it had been a long time before we saw each other today.
Yeah, it was like, I want to say 9 months, but it might have been 10 months. But even when I made the decision, like, oh, I'm going, I didn't like stay at home the whole time.
Right.
I spent time with family. But when I made the decision to go back, I was still like, I'm still feeling better than I ever felt before Idaho. I'm still feeling better. I never went back into that hole. I never went back to the face pain. I do have like joint and muscle pain, but it's like a fraction of what it was.
So in the meantime, Eric makes a big decision.
He does.
So tell everybody what he does.
So he transfers here. So thanks, Eric, best fiance ever.
Best sister, best fiance.
I'm pretty lucky.
Yeah, but he decides to come out here because he's like, well, they were able to help, and we don't want to be very far from the clinic.
Right.
Like I'm doing my own like recruitment to Idaho,
Right.
just so you know. Like I think
One
last
person
year,
at a time.
let's see, last year I had 7 people move here. You were one of the 7.
Oh wow, I had no idea other
Yeah.
people. I thought I was like the only.
Well, you are. You're the extra special one,
Right,
but there's other
thanks.
special people. You're just extra special.
Right.
So you get here, and during that coronavirus, I don't think you get sick.
No, I
don't get sick,
didn't
right?
get sick.
And you were worried about it because the immune system was compromised.
Right.
But I had told you, like, look, once we get that much stuff into you, so now we're pushing, at least 2 million milligrams of vitamin C in the course of the treatment, which is of the goal. And then I'm like, look, once we kind of get you over that hump, like, I think it's going to be pretty good. And I remember you saying, I hope you're right.
Yeah.
Because you didn't believe me.
No, not at all. I really didn't.
Okay, so now everything's a fraction. The head and neck pain hasn't showed up. You're, and we came up, and when I talked to you today, you're kind of like, look, I just kind of want a little tune-up.
I'm
we don't
tired.
need to. Yeah, we don't need to do a great
Right.
big protocol or anything. I'm like, okay, we're just going to tune you up.
Yes, I'm so happy to be. Like, I feel so accomplished. Like, I did this. I didn't do this, but that's
Well,
how I feel.
And so, you guys, this is the reason why I wanted to come on the show, because I wanted you to know, like, when we get everything lined up and get Angela the best, vitamins and minerals, which is the one that she needs. So, like, we went over the blood tests and we kind of skipped over that, but I think there's a ton of importance in looking at someone's blood test. And then I'd want to make sure everybody knows how hard Angela worked, which is she got her body on a schedule. She started making sure that she had a stress relief. You've always been a clean eater, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think remember when we first interviewed you, and you're like, look, I never deviate.
Right. I gotta unlock.
Yeah, I've got to, like, I eat healthy and alive food. I don't eat, plastic foods. I don't drink soda. I mean,
none of that.
And then that was the other reason that I had confidence, because so many times when people aren't feeling good, they look for a crutch, and the crutch is, soda, it's chocolate, it's sugar, it's nicotine, it's caffeine, it's something to like build you up. And when you told me I'm really not doing that, that's when I was like even stepped in further. So like, I know I can help.
Oh.
That's part of it too, because sometimes we have to unprogram people a little bit. Like I just had a patient that's really sick, and he's like, look, I drink 64 ounces of Diet Coke every single day. I have powdered donuts at 10 o'clock. I have, you know, a Snickers bar at 4 o'clock just so that I can function. And I know you're going to tell me not to do that. And I said to him, of course I am. Like, you shouldn't drink acid. You shouldn't be having that much sugar. You shouldn't, like, everyone knows powdered donuts, like, they're not very good for you. But a person like that, it's going to take more work than someone that, like you, where, like, you walked in and you said, I'm doing everything right. How come I can't get better? And I'm like, well, we just got to give you millions of vitamin C.
Yeah.
So, you guys, I am so proud and inspired by Angela's story. Like, when I saw her today, I'm like, this is so cool. You have to share the story. One, because it's therapeutic for you, and two, because people need to hear it. And I love what you had hit on of, like, I feeling accomplished, because, like, hats off to you. Like, you're winning.
Well, finally, yes, but we're winning.
We're winning.
Yes.
So I tell her, hey, you're the all-star player. I'm the coach. Like, we got to work together on this. So any last-minute takeaways for people? Like, this goes usually across the country. I've had people in Australia and England and South Africa contact us. So if people are watching this outside, like a long ways away, what would you suggest at home? And then what would you suggest as far as either finding doctors that could do these treatments or coming here? Like, kind of, now that you know what you know, like, what would you tell people that are watching this?
I would tell you, especially if you have Lyme disease, this goes for all chronic illness, but especially if you have Lyme disease, like, don't give up. Listen to yourself. So if you're in an office and your doctor isn't listening to you, just walk out. Like, listen to yourself. Find somebody, don't give up, because this is really my last ditch effort. And in has it been 2 years?
Yeah, it will be 2 years in November, I think.
I went from really thinking this was gonna kill me to now I'm like, do you know what kind of hikes I wanna go on this summer? Do you know, like, next summer I wanna, like, through hike the PCT or something. Like, I'm so excited. That's in 2 years. Like, I remember having a conversation with my sister, like, I think I have to get my will in order, because I don't really feel like I have much time left. And so in the span of 2 years, so really, like, I know I was desperate. I really thought it was over. So I know how you feel. It's not over.
Everyone, like, I don't even have a better ending than that. Like, don't give up. Listen to your doctor. And I tell people all the time, like, if you don't like your doctor, like, that's one of the biggest things that you need to do. Like, find someone that you like to work with and that will listen to you. And like my dad told me years ago, some of your best relationships and your best friends are going to be patients inside your office. And, like, Angela's a perfect example. Like, I enjoy my relationship with you. When I saw you, I was so excited to get caught up. And then when you're like, hey, you know, I'm really doing really good. Yes, I need a little bit of fine tuning, but we weren't at the cold dark place that we were.
Not even close.
And while I had the expectations that we were going to help, it's just a wonderful story. I'm so proud of you. Her fiance moves here. She's reestablished roots in the booming megatropolis of southeastern Idaho. And anyway, what a great story. I'm just going to leave it at that. Don't give up. And if people aren't listening to you, like, keep searching. Find someone else and to do that.
Call the West Clinic.
All right, you guys. Dr. West and Angela, Thursday Night Live. Next week, we're going to have another patient in studio going over, I totally believe you can live this. You're not your disease. There's a person in there, and you can beat your diagnosis. Dr. Jason West and Angela, we're out. See you guys later.